about buying football in June? Well, with the super early bird football promotion at WagerTalk and Sports Memo, we have a few reasons why. Early bird pricing for NFL and college football combo is $8.99, but using coupon code FOOTBALL100, you can take $100 off, dropping the price to $7.99. If you purchase by June 30th and use coupon code FOOTBALL100 to get your $100 discount, we'll also toss in an additional bonus. On July 4th, we'll take the highest scoring MLB game of the day and give you $10 for every run scored. Yes, so if July 4th, the highest scoring game is 10-9, you will get $190 in wager bucks to use how you choose. This super early bird $100 discount using Football 100 and wager bucks bonus expires on June 30th with no exceptions. So if you plan to bet football this year, this is the lowest price we will offer. So act fast and lock in your favorite football handicappers in both NFL and college football through the national championships and Super Bowl.
Welcome into the USFL Betting Show. I am Drew Martin, joined by Adam Trigger, Robbie Veno, and Tony Mejia of WagerTalk.com. We got 4 games on the Week 9 slate for the USFL, the new betting league. If you're just joining us now, welcome on in. We're doing this each and every week, Thursdays, on the WagerTalk YouTube channel. And welcome back to all the people that have been watching throughout this season. It's been fun. We've had some winners. We've had some losers. Looking to find more winners than losers on this week's slate. Getting started here, guys. 1 o'clock Eastern start on Saturday. There's 2 games on Saturday, 2 games on Sunday. No Friday night matchups here. Tony, let's start off with you. The first game up for the Week 9 slate, 1 o'clock Eastern. We get the New Jersey Generals, Michigan Panthers. We're seeing 47 as the total. Looking at the Wager Talk odds screen here, guys. -7 in the hook. That's the Generals as the favorite. There is a -8 out there at the Westgate in Las Vegas. Tony, first game up. You liking anything here?
That's a very high total from what I see. I mean, we're not used to seeing them that high. So that's my first inclination because I have not looked at numbers until just now on these games. 47 is the highest total on the board, except for the Stars Maulers, which I understand a little more considering how bad Philadelphia is defensively and how explosive they can tend to be on the offensive end. But yeah, the Generals have been a moneymaker. You know, they've won 7 straight, and now they're looking for coming off a win over the Maulers. Looking to continue strengthening their position as they're already as the number 1 seed in the North Division. But yeah, this will be an interesting test against Michigan. Again, I think the total is a little high for me. But yeah, Michigan started the season wanting to establish the run, and then they kind of did an about face on that and have become a passing team. So I could understand why the total is what it is, but it's still a little too high for me. So I would lean under in this one, and certainly would not want to step in front of New Jersey's momentum, with a Michigan team that's been wishy-washy.
Okay, good stuff. We got Generals here, Panthers. Robbie, I mean, the Panthers with the quarterback changes. We get the Generals playing some good football, but hey, laying more than a touchdown, is that too rich for you? What do you think, man?
Yeah, it's interesting, Drew, because we always know that Jersey's going to shorten up games, but they seem to score on their possession. So shortening up games hasn't really driven games under, right? I had a play on Jersey-Pittsburgh under last week, and that game wound up getting the 47 points. So New Jersey's been very, very efficient offensively. They're already in the playoffs. And I think that, the more I thought about it, next week, Week 10 is probably the week to let off the gas. New Jersey actually plays Philadelphia next week to end the regular season, and then they'll play Philadelphia first round of the playoffs. So I think next week's Jersey-Philadelphia game will probably be very vanilla. And the 2 teams will play this one out here. For New Jersey, just want to point out some numbers out of Luis Perez. Last 3 weeks at quarterback for this team. 75% completion, 76% completion, 79.3% completions. Overall, the last 3 weeks, 60 of 78, 76.9% to go along with the league's best running game. And as I've mentioned before, when you watch New Jersey play, they don't do anything fancy. They run it, they establish that, and then they throw screen passes, quick slants, and those things turn into 20, 25-yard gains. And Michigan has been so porous as far as points allowed are concerned. I think they've allowed 26 or better in the last 4 games each. So I don't know, Drew. I think New Jersey's probably the right side here. after what I saw out of Michigan's defense last week against Philly, and it could potentially be another over because New Jersey just seems to find their way to mid-high 20s every single week.
Trig, we got the Generals winning 7 straight, Panthers losing 5 straight. What are you thinking? Ride the hot, fade the cold, or maybe jump on the dog here?
Well, Drew, thank God we can bet these games because this is the first of 3 absolutely meaningless games this week. There's one game that actually means something, and it's not this one. But I do have some takes here, Drew. I think the total's high for a reason. I agree with Rob. That New Jersey-Philly game is probably just going to be they're probably going to be annoyed they even have to show up and play because they will play each other in the playoffs. So you might want to bet the under in that game right when it comes out because it'll probably come out before we do this show next week. That's for next week's game. For this week's game, I agree with Rob, and I think maybe Tony pointed out the total's high. This feels like it could turn into a little bit of a free-for-all, similar to Michigan's game last week that got out of hand with Philadelphia. Scored well over 60 points. I think the Generals are going to probably do what they've been doing this whole season, and I don't think they're going to let up just yet. I think if they're going to have a little bit of a game where they call off the dogs or maybe they don't want to show anything, it would be next week. So I expect New Jersey to play like they've been playing, and Michigan is not, Michigan's not inept at this point. Which makes me a little weary. I wouldn't want to lay this number just because I think if Michigan decided to put 2 halves together, they might be able to stay within a touchdown. But I'll go with the over here. I think I have a feeling there's going to be points. I have a feeling that this spread is high for a reason.
Robbie, next game up, 6 p.m. Eastern, Saturday night. Houston Gamblers, Birmingham Stallions. We get -12 in the hook. That's the Stallions at home, not only listed as the home team, but if you're new to the USFL, guys, all the games right now are in Birmingham. 43.5 being the total. I don't know, Robbie. I've liked the Stallions team, man. They've been covering some numbers, and they've been, even kind of elevated numbers. They've been covering some of them. You'd look to lay the 12 in the hook here.
And last week, Drew, they didn't get to cover the number in a game where New Orleans had everything to play for and Birmingham kind of didn't. But Birmingham still won the game 10-9, and Birmingham is without some really key offensive pieces. Victor Bolden is their total yardage leader, number 1 wide receiver. I think it's between him and Cavante Turpin of the Generals for the 2 best wide receiver performances so far in the USFL this season. He's out again. Looks like their top tight end, Kerry Angeline, out again. And I think these absences showed up in their offensive performance last week and even the week before. They scored 26 against Pittsburgh, but they were not world beaters offensively. Jamar Smith has had back-to-back average to subpar games at quarterback, and they've started to lean a lot more on the running game than they did, full season-wise. Last 2 weeks, 55% of their total yardage has come via the run. C.J. Marable, ex-Coastal Carolina star, and, of course, Bo Scarborough, who we've talked about a lot. For the full season, their rushing yardage only produced 46.1% of their total yardage. So they're 9% higher right now the last 2 weeks. Now, that could be a team recognizing injuries in their receiving core, or it could be a team recognizing that they're already in the playoffs and they're going through the motions somewhat. But I don't think you go out there and beat a New Orleans team that had everything to play for by just going through the motions. So credit to Birmingham. And I don't know how important the undefeated season is to them, Drew, but I'm going to imagine it is. It's the inaugural USFL season. These guys probably do want to go undefeated. I think you're going to get full effort out of them. If Birmingham runs the football like they've been doing the last couple of weeks, the matchup here is perfect. Houston's tied for the worst run defense in the USFL, allowing 141.1 yards per game. They're tied with Pittsburgh in that category. So I think, again, it could be run, which would probably lead me more towards under because Houston's got significant injuries on their side too. Mark Thompson, their best running back, out. Isaiah Zuber, their best wide receiver, out. So I would think that under is probably a really good look here since Birmingham has turned to the run right now.
Trig, I mean, talking about the Stallions, to Robbie's point, last week not covering, but before that, they were on a nice little ATS run, man. What are you thinking here? 12.5, a little too tall for you?
Well, double digits has been too tall the whole season. I don't think we've had a double-digit favorite cover yet in the USFL. We've only had 2 or 3 all year, and I'm pretty sure the underdog has gotten the money every single time there's been a double-digit favorite so far. So that would point me to the gamblers. But like Rob said, if there's a team that maybe has given up at this point, like they've got to be the candidate for that. I mean, they're obviously out of it. Last week, 3 points against Tampa Bay. They lose 13-3. It's probably going to come down to how Birmingham approaches this game. They are a little bit banged up, so if they kind of come out, run the ball, take their foot off the gas a little bit, 12.5 might be difficult for them to cover. But if it's a scenario where they want to just sort of roll this week and get their guys reps and then rest them next week. Or if they really are going to kind of go all out for this perfect season, I would be wary that they pull away at some point, which kind of make it's just tough to come in with the gamblers. But from a just a straight up spread value perspective, I think 12.5 is probably too many because Houston, they've shown that they're not completely incapable, and even last week when they didn't have much to play for, they still only lost by 10. So. I lean toward the gamblers here. I don't know if I'll get to the window with them, but gamblers plus 12.5 is the way I would look.
Mejia, anything in conclusion here on the Saturday nightcap here?
Definitely agree with Rob on the under. I mean, at this point, I've been off the gamblers for weeks now. Said I didn't like them, didn't like the way they blew games down the stretch. Don't like Kevin Sumlin's ability to make decisions that produce wins, and that's come to fruition. But they have had the defensive player of the week in the USFL in consecutive weeks. Donald Payne in week 7, despite the fact they got lit up by Philadelphia, and Chris Odom, the defensive end, last week, and they actually outgained the Bandits last week. They total yards and they won the turnover battle. They create 2 miscues in the fourth quarter and can't do anything with them. Go 3 and out and they throw a pick. And they lose 13-3. So nothing I can get behind in terms of, I mean, you can give me 2 touchdowns. I wouldn't take the gamblers. But as far as the under goes, I can see Birmingham being conservative here, trying to run the football. And it's very interesting to see how that undefeated season serves as a motivator, because next week they could be playing to keep Tampa Bay out of that semifinal spot, or they could be playing vanilla to ensure that Tampa Bay gets in there, depending on what their feelings are towards playing New Orleans, and depending on what happens between New Orleans and Tampa Bay.
Tony, not liking Kevin Sumlin there, man. What, that 10-win season with the Aggies and the SEC West, Johnny Manziel calling the shots.
You said it. Johnny Manziel was calling the shots, and he was a pretty good college football player.
Yeah, actually he was. Winning the Heisman Trophy, right? So Johnny Football. Hey, he should have been in this league. I'm surprised he kind of wasn't. But, hey, we got to digress here to the Sunday card. Trig, coming to you first. We get 7:55, 7:56, 4 o'clock Eastern. Tampa Bay Bandits, New Orleans Breakers. WagerTalk odds screen showing -3 across the board. There is some juice at some of the shops. 43.5. So we get the Breakers as the favorite by a field goal here, Trig. You liking anything kicking off Sunday?
Well, Drew, I cashed with New Orleans last week. I went 1-1 last week, and my winner was Breakers +3. They didn't win the game, but they got the cover. And I told you last week on the show, I'm all in on New Orleans. And even though they lost, they're still not out of it. So I'm gonna stick with that. I'm backing the Breakers here. The only reason I haven't bet it yet is I was actually surprised that this was 3.5. Looks like it's 3 now everywhere. I don't know if that means Tampa's going to continue to take money and if we can get a little better. But either way, it hasn't really mattered all that much, because the favorites when they win have been covering quite often in this league. So I'm willing to, if it's a small number, I'm fine with laying it. I think, again, if Kyle Sloter cannot turn the ball over, New Orleans wins that game last week, and they've probably have another win if you go back and look at a close game that they lost earlier this year. I still think, Tampa has been overrated ever since the beginning of this season. They came in sort of like, that their offense was going to be unstoppable. Jordan Teamu, best quarterback in the league. That really just hasn't been the case. I mean, if you look at what Tampa's done, with the exception of like 1 week, in 1 or 2 weeks, their offense really hasn't been great. And they weren't great last week against a Gamblers team that had nothing to play for. So I'm on the Breakers here. I'll lay the 3. I think New Orleans is the better team. They need this game, and I think they put it together and get the win.
Tony, I like the Breakers too. What are you thinking here? Bandits and Breakers.
I like the Breakers 3. I was big on Tampa Bay at the beginning of the season. I've seen enough from them to just consistently shoot themselves in the foot. Just mentioned that game against the Gamblers. They tried to give it away too. And it's just because Houston is so inept that they didn't get that there was no game pressure in that game in terms of it becoming a one score game down the stretch. I mean, it certainly should have been. New Orleans dominated the first matchup between these teams 34-3. They can wrap it up with a nice, neat little bow if they pull off a victory here. And if they lose, New Orleans still has an edge because they get the Gamblers next and would then have to hope that Birmingham could knock off Tampa Bay. So I'm sure they're rooting for Birmingham to have an undefeated season to play for as an insurance policy. But yeah, one thing, here's my weather update for this week. 100-degree weather in Birmingham, at least on the real feel. It's going to be in the high 90s, and it's going to be a desert out there for this noon start, or this early start. It's not the noon start, but it's the early game on Sunday, 4 p.m. Eastern time. It's going to be very hot, so that'll be a test for both defenses. The way that Tampa Bay methodically moves the ball down the field, that might serve them well there. But I just like New Orleans' big play factor. If Slaughter hits a couple of big passes, I just think that the mountain will be too high. So I'm in agreement with you and Trig. Give me the New Orleans Breakers, and I'll lay the points.
I like it, Tony. He's given the weather update here for Birmingham. Always important. Tony, weather expert Mejia. Ravi, we gonna look for the Breakers. You liking them number 4?
Yeah, I will. Breakers 1, Breakers 2, Breakers 3. I'll be Breakers 4. I'm going to point out some numbers here, guys, as far as what I would call disruptive stats defensively are concerned. Sacks and tackles for loss added together. How many have you gotten? How many have you allowed? Shows a pretty good, paints a pretty good picture of your defense. The New Orleans Breakers are number 1 in the league as far as plus minus is concerned. They're plus 20 in that category. They've got 40 sacks or tackles for loss, and they've only allowed 20. So plus 20 in that category, it's 60-40, plus 20 in that category. The Tampa Bay Bandits are an interesting case study. They're number 1 in sacks defensively, sacks plus tackles for loss. They have 67. That's the best in the league. But they're the worst in the league in allowing these things. They've allowed 75 sacks plus tackles for loss this year. And against the New Orleans defense, I don't see any way that 75 holds up here. I think that offensive line probably gets caved in. Remember the first time around, and these are all week 2 rematches. The first time around, this was an absolute blowout, 34-3. It seemed like Tampa couldn't even get a play off without being under siege. And I'd almost expect that same type of thing to happen here. To add to Tampa Bay's misery defensively, they've only got 4 takeaways in 8 games. That's almost unbelievable. They've got 3 picks and 1 fumble return. It ranks worst in the league by a wide margin. I think number 1 in the league has 18. So they don't take the ball away. They allow the defense to get into their backfield. Jordan Ta'amu, for all the hype coming in, this team has still only completed 56% of their passes on the season, which is a terrible number for a professional team. So I think New Orleans has all the advantages here. They didn't get it done last week. Perhaps the reason why we've seen 3.5 come down to 3 is that this virtually is for a playoff spot. And if Tampa Bay does win this game, they'll go ahead of New Orleans divisional record-wise. And that would mean they'd get the nod over New Orleans because they'd be tied overall record-wise. And it would come down to week 10. But I think New Orleans gets it done here. To Tony's point about 100-degree weather, thank God that everything is done right here in Birmingham. So these guys can be accustomed to practicing in it all week long for the last 9, 10, 13 weeks, preseason, whatever it's been. So they're probably used to the weather. I think New Orleans is a little bit deeper. As Tony mentioned, a little more capable of breaking a big play. So give me New Orleans here. I'll be the fourth guy in.
I like it. Clean sweep here, guys, with the Breakers. We got one game left. Talking the Stars and the Maulers. We get the Stars winning 3 straight, Maulers losing 3 straight. Tony, starting off with you, 8 in the hook. That's the Stars as the favorite. Of course, the ultimate equalizer, 47 being the total. You liking anything in the nightcap for Sunday? The nightcap here for Week 9 slate, Tony.
Well, if you hadn't watched this league all season like we have, I mean, you'd be thinking Case Cook is the second coming, given what he was able to do last week. 4 touchdowns, a 79-yard touchdown run, a 5th touchdown there, and the Philadelphia squad scores 46, and they've been piling on the points. 35 in a win over the Bandits, 35 in a win over the Gamblers, and the 46 last week. So they're peaking at the right time. Obviously, he took over for Brian Scott, who was lost for the season early on. And it looks like this is a team that's clicking on all cylinders on both sides of the ball. They're forcing turnovers. They played 2 of the worst teams in the USFL over the last 2 weeks. But this Pittsburgh team, what is it? The least scoring team, lowest scoring team in the USFL, and they've given up the second most amount of points. I think I have that right. Maulers did play them well in the Stars in game 2, I believe. 30-23 was the final there, so I don't think they'll be overlooked. I think this ends up being a double-digit score, and I think the points keep coming. So this may just be a lay the points and ride the over situation.
Okay. And Robbie, you liking anything here in the last game on the card?
It's hard to disagree with what Tony was just saying about the total, because Philadelphia has been so good offensively the last 3 weeks. In their last 3 games, they've scored 116 points, and only 2 of those were produced by the defense, 1 safety. It's not like they have defensive touchdowns or special teams returns for touchdowns. It's 114 points by the offense, 38.7 per game. Tony pointed out, you played a couple of teams, Michigan and Houston, with ridiculously bad records. They did play Tampa Bay, who, as I mentioned, is a pretty stout defense along the way. So they've been good. And I think what's happened here, guys, is at the start of the season, all this team could do was throw the football. But that's changed. Over the course of the last 3 weeks, they've been able to run it. They've run it better than anybody, as a matter of fact. 177.7 yards per game rushing from a team that ranked dead last by margin in the USFL through the first 5 weeks. So that offense has gotten it together where running the football is concerned. And Pittsburgh tied with Houston as the worst rush defense in the league. So if you give Philadelphia the opportunity to run it as well as pass it with Case Cookis, you're probably not going to stop them whatsoever. The first time around, this game got to 53 points. Remember in that game, Pittsburgh's winning 23-21. Into the fourth quarter, Philadelphia -6 scores a touchdown to get ahead 27-23, and then gets the 3-point conversion to get the cover. But Pittsburgh did a lot of good things in that game. It seems like years ago, because Josh Love was the quarterback on one side. Tony pointed out Brian Scott, he was the quarterback on the other side that day, but Pittsburgh did have a total yardage advantage. And Pittsburgh right now, watched Roland Rivers play quarterback last week for the Maulers. He's the kid who came in after head coach Kirby Wilson was so mad at Vad Lee that he benched him with 5 minutes left in the fourth. Vad Lee hasn't seen the field since. Rivers was terrible for 3 quarters against the Generals last week, but all of a sudden in the fourth quarter, they moved the ball like crazy. So maybe something has clicked there. Philly's still not a good defense. Yeah, I could see this one getting over the total. Real quick here, first half numbers. We've talked a lot this year about the Houston Gamblers and how good they've been first half. The Philadelphia Stars, 5-1-1 against the spread first half, 6-1 to the over in the first half, and those games average 28.5 points per game. So first half over or Philly in the first half could be well worth a look too.
Trig, what do you got here in the nightcap Sunday night, man?
I have a feeling Pittsburgh hangs around here. I'm with Rob. Philly is not good enough defensively where I want to just like continue to lay big numbers with them. If you go back to last week, Rob and I had a little bit of a CLV trophy add to the trophy case with Michigan. I know he gave it because he gave it out on the show, and I bet it, and they were +5. I think that number moved like 3 points. I want to say it went off Philly -2, and then somehow they just come out and win by 20, which is like, it's frustrating when you beat the number by that much and that happens. But I would go back and think that might happen here again, where you take it at 8.5 and it might come down a little bit, because the Stars just don't play enough defense where the back door should always be open in a game like this. And then you add another layer of, remember, this game is going to be meaningless for the Stars as well. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, because the other two teams in their division are both 1-7. So you have to you got to be able to, I guess, stomach the Maulers. Like, are they going to come out and play for pride? Do they want to finish the season on a high note? I feel like the way they've played so far, they will. Like, I don't think they're just going to roll over in this game. They've kind of been the team since the beginning of the year, Drew, that, they were written off like right after the first couple of weeks. Like, people had put them right at the bottom of the league. So I don't really think they've ever been in it to this point. And obviously some roster changes and what have you. I think the Maulers will come to play. And I think if they come to play, there's a good chance the back door is open the entire time. And I wouldn't even be surprised if it was similar to the first meeting, where it's pretty competitive and Philly's the team that needs to make a play to win it late. But if we're betting numbers and not teams, I think 8.5 is probably too many. I think this ends up being a competitive game, and I don't disagree with the over as well. Feels like there's going to be some points here.
He's Adam Trigger. Check him out, WagerTalk.com. Robbie Veno as well. Tony Mejia. Guys, check out Rob Veno. We got best bets coming up right now. Look to bet his best bet. Also, check him out at WagerTalk.com. He is hot right now. One of the hottest on the site. Last 3 days up big time, Robbie. So, hey, doing well USFL, doing well baseball. I'm guessing NBA as well. Any final thoughts for the show? Looked like you had something there. And what's your best bet?
Just because I want to add to the case that Adam's building for Pittsburgh, something that I left out when I was giving analysis on this, Drew, is that Pittsburgh, despite the coaching woes, Kirby Wilson's been terrible. They play hard for 60 minutes. And if you just go back, they've won the fourth quarter in 4 of their last 5 games. And winning the fourth quarter in 4 of the last 5 has turned, he talked about backdoor being open. It's turned 3 of those into ATS covers. And depending on where you got the number last week, I know it closed 10.5. They lost by 11, but you could have got 12 early, 11.5. It could, if you got the right side of the law there, it would be 4 covers in the last 5 games because they're winning fourth quarters. They're not laying down. And so to both of the points that he made, they may be a shade undervalued. They do give you 60 minutes worth of effort regardless of their talent level, and it's resulted in some point spread covers. So just wanted to add that to what he was saying. I'm going to do this, guys. I'm going to go back to the first game that we talked about, Jersey and Michigan, and play that game over the first half total. I think it's 23.5. We're looking for 24 here, a 14-10, a 17-7, something like that. As I mentioned earlier, Michigan's been giving up points like water for the last 5 weeks, and they've gone well over the total full game 5 weeks in a row. They've also gone over the total first half 5 weeks in a row. I think the lowest game they played points combined-wise in the first half was 27. And Jersey's just got a way of scoring on these drives. I don't think Michigan defensively stops them. And I do think Michigan is, one of the guys pointed out, they've turned to throwing the ball a little bit more. Last week they played without Reggie Corbin, who's their top running back. I think what I saw, I'm going to double check here real quick. I thought I saw Reggie Corbin's going to play this week. And it looks like he's off the injury list. Yeah, with him back, they become more explosive. So I'm going to try over 23.5. First half, Michigan and New Jersey. New Jersey, to their credit, 4-1 over the total. Last 5 first halves as well. That's a 9-1 combined. I'll play it that way. Jersey, Michigan, first half over 23.5.
All right, we got Adam Trigger as well, guys, on a 4-0 run here. 5% MLB play up for Thursday night. He also good in the NBA playoffs, 12-5 over 70%. So look for him, as there's only a couple games left on the hardwood. But Trig, throw it over to you. Final thoughts for the show and what's your best bet?
Yeah, I'm going to continue to ride the Breakers, Drew. I think they're going to win their way into the playoffs. I felt like they played good enough to win last week. Couple turnovers killed them, and eventually just a kind of a heartbreaking loss for them. Lost by a point, but they got the money against the number. I think they're going to get us the money again here. Just think they're a more complete team than Tampa Bay. And Kyle Sloter, I'll take him over Tiamu. I still think Sloter's probably the best quarterback in this league, Drew. If he could eliminate the catastrophic mistake here and there, he really would be the best quarterback in this league, in my opinion. So I'm gonna ride with the Breakers. That's my pick to make the playoffs and go on a run. I'll lay the small number. New Orleans Breakers -3.
Hey, I'm backing that. I'm on the Breakers -3 as well, as is Rob Veno and Tony Mejia, guys. So I'll make it my best bet as well. I've liked this New Orleans team all season long, and just laying the 3 flat, guys, I'm going to make that my best bet. Tony, heading to you to finish it off here. 4 best bets, guys. Check out Tony. He's got a 4% MLB play up. If you like volume, guys, Tony's your guy. He's throwing out a lot of plays and knows his college football, NFL as well. So check him out for UCF analysis. Check him out for USFL analysis as well. Tony, throw it over to you. Final thoughts for the show, and what's your best bet?
Well, as we were chatting and taping this show on a Thursday afternoon, I noticed that DraftKings, which had the only 47 on the board in stars and maulers, moved to 47.5 and juiced it up to 15 on the over. So I guess an over bet came in. I certainly like the over as my best bet in this game. The maulers, nothing to play for. The stars showing off with 116 points over the last 3 games. Again, nothing to play for. Just put on a show on a Sunday night when there's no NBA. I know that. I'm not sure if there's going to be an NHL playoff game that night. And I don't know what the MLB Sunday nighter, but maybe they can get some eyeballs on this USFL product. And I think they'll get a show from a prolific offense, the most prolific offense in this league in the Philadelphia Stars, and a Maulers team that hasn't quit, as was pointed out on the show earlier. So give me the over, try to get the best number. It's 48s across the board. DraftKings, as I mentioned, has that 47.5 available. Go over in Stars Maulers on Sunday night.
Tony Mejia, heard him from there. We got the recap here for the best bets. Tony on that Philadelphia-Pittsburgh over 47.5. Rob Veno, New Jersey, Michigan, first half over 23 in the hook. And Adam Trigger and myself on the New Orleans side of things, the Breakers minus the field goal. So from all 4 of us, thanks for tuning in. If you're liking the content, please smash the like button. Feel free to reply below, guys, what you want to hear on next week's show. We'll be back same time, same place. Come back and join us. Best of luck until then.
Who's thinking about buying football in June? Well, with the super early bird football promotion at WagerTalk and Sports Memo, we have a few reasons why. Early bird pricing for NFL and college football combo is $8.99. But using coupon code FOOTBALL100, you can take $100 off, dropping the price to $7.99. If you purchase by June 30th and use coupon code FOOTBALL100 to get your $100 discount, we'll also toss in an additional bonus. On July 4th, we'll take the highest scoring MLB game of the day and give you $10 for every run scored. Yes, so if July 4th, the highest scoring game is 10-9, you will get $190 in wager bucks to use how you choose. This super early bird $100 discount using Football 100 and WagerBucks bonus expires on June 30th with no exceptions. So if you plan to bet football this year, this is the lowest price we will offer. So act fast and lock in your favorite football handicappers in both NFL and college football through the national championships and Super Bowl.